Hello and welcome to the Health Wizard podcast. I'm your host, Elena Medici, a health and life coach. I'm so excited that you're choosing to listen to my podcast because you are choosing to make your health your priority. The Health Wizard podcast is dedicated to teaching natural, easy to implement practices that you can use to get your health on track and become the person you used to be before getting sick and the person you're dreaming of becoming again, happy, healthy, full of energy, and living a life filled with joy. Now, very quickly, before we dive into the good stuff, I want to remind you that this podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice. If you have a medical condition, please seek the help of a licensed medical professional. I am not a medical doctor. I do not treat, diagnose, prescribe, or make claims outside of my areas of expertise. So by choosing to listen to the Health Wizard podcast, you take full responsibility for your own actions. And when you hear the testimonials of the people who were able to get well, realize that their outcomes depended on their effort and their specific situation. With that said, let's jump into today's episode. Please enjoy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Elena coming your way with a very special episode of the Health Wizard podcast that we're taping live today. I reached out to some of my clients and we're talking about with coronavirus going on, and we're talking about what can we bring to our audience. And then I heard from one of our graduates, Janine, who is joining me today, and she said, well, why don't I interview you? I have questions for you. And I thought, what a novel idea it was. Fantastic, interview me. So she came out with a list of questions, and she's putting me today in a hot seat, we call it love seat. She is going to take the reign over this interview, and I'm not used to it because I'm usually the woman in charge. So I will be taking a different role today. And with that, let me bring on Janine here and introduce you. Janine, why don't we have you hop on here, introduce yourself, and tell everybody a little bit of your background, like how did we find each other, what happened, and how has your health been since?
Thank you, Elena. It's very, very exciting to be here, just sharing this time with you. And I'm so thankful for it. Thank you so much for just having me do this with you, because I wanted people to kind of get a glimpse of you and feel you as a person, as a whole woman, with everything that you've done and been through. So I just really love the opportunity that you gave me, to share this time with you to make that happen. So you and I met about a year ago, and I came recommended to you from a previous coach that I was working with. And I told her what I wanted to do, that I had made some progress emotionally, and that I was looking still to make some physical progress with my body and some symptoms that I was still experiencing. So I was looking at some coaches, and I was looking at this other woman, and she said, I really have a woman for you. And she's really tough, but she will deliver results if that's what you're looking for. So I went and I tuned into your masterclass. I listened to that first. I got a sense of who you were very quickly, and your strength and determination and power. And I thought, this is definitely the woman that I need to contact. So I just was moved, by your strength and your professionalism. And I knew that I was going to be able to make some progress with you. So, it's not for the weak, there's really nothing warm and fuzzy going on
I love
here.
that. I was never classified as like, this is tough woman, but I guess I am, right? The way we approach everything is no nonsense. Let's make it happen, because we don't have a whole life to waste.
Right. You know what I mean? We joke about being a Wonder Woman, or you being a Wonder Woman, and there's really not too much room for anything else. So it's seriousness when it comes to suffering and hurting, and the amount of time, that you went through with your own story and journey that I did, and what a lot of men and women, that kind of suffering that's going on. So there isn't really too much time for anything other than just getting serious and making progress, in your health and improving it. And, you're a tremendous coach and role model, because you're walking the walk. You've made the changes and the progress in your own life, and you now are helping other women and men to, do that for themselves if they want to go this route and this journey. So,
which is the route that you've taken, and see how uncontrollably it has for me, I'm like, I want to interview you now. And I know you want to interview me. So we're going to flip. I'm like, oh, this is so great. So nice. Thank you for compliments, but let's talk about you. But I guess
Yeah.
today I'm in a different seat altogether. Just a quick, let's take a 30-second summary of where you started with your napping every day to right now you're not likely, right? And where
Yeah.
you are. And then let's jump into whatever you want to do on this interview.
Okay, so when I met you, I was sleeping for maybe about 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon. I just had tremendous fatigue. There was so much that I couldn't do um, in my life, and the things that I wanted to do was very depressing because there was nothing that I just didn't have the stamina to make it through the day, whether we were planning activities with my family or my husband, and the fatigue was just really huge. I also had a lot of body pain, and I knew that my diet and the way that I've been eating and my sugar consumption still wasn't healed or where I wanted it to be or under control. So I had that aspect. So I knew that my binge eating to help myself cope with stress, present at the time that, that we met was still not where I wanted it to be because it was hurting my body. I was doing that activity. I couldn't stop. And I wanted to make progress in all those areas. So, we did that. We worked together for 3 months, and you have different amounts of time, that people can choose to work with you. And I plugged in for 3 months. I did the best that I could. I struggled with that piece with the food addiction and whatever we want to call it. So you helped me uncover some more of those emotional components. We made a lot of progress there. Since then, that 3 months after that went by, I've just been continuing to work on my own as best as possible. I kind of got away from the philosophy of going to the doctor when we had a problem, taking a pill, talking to a therapist and just having somebody there, to talk to. Nothing was happening. I've just been working on myself since we stopped working together. I've made more progress. My diet has changed again. I started cooking as of January 1st, and you being plant-based, mainly plant-based, I've just been able to make more progress, and I notice that the better I get with my diet anyway, and the more strides that I make keeping the sugar out, that's helping me lower the anxiety level, and I'm getting calmer.
And
I'm
your
able to
sleep
slow
is
down.
better, you're
Sleep is
resting, you're not
improved.
sleeping through. I read a post that you shared a few days ago that you went on an 8-mile bike ride, some more energy apparently.
Actually, when I communicated that, I think I communicated it wrong because the 8-mile bike ride was one way.
Okay.
So I went one way 8 miles and I came back 8 miles. So it's 16 miles. 8 miles sounded great, but it was really 16. So I'm sitting here like as a person that has made a lot of progress. I'm still focusing on how much more I still have to do because I still have a ways to go, but we all have a journey, and I've just made a lot of progress.
And I think that you said the key. I think that a lot of us in the Western society want that magic potion, magic pill. You take it today and everything is gone tomorrow. And what you said earlier when we started, this is not for the weak of heart, because we're talking about lifelong transformation, taking yourself from the victim mentality that we could have developed in our society, in our family, in our personal life, and transferring that, yes, better health, but also creating a whole new identity around the people that we become, which I think is what you wanted to talk about today. So take it away.
You work so much with the thyroid and the autoimmune conditions. And the fact that I'm developing my voice after not having it pretty much my whole life is no coincidence. There's just so much more to what people think there is. You know what I mean? It's like the iceberg. There's so much more underneath the surface than there is. So I just so happy to share you with the world. I just wish that when I was watching like 60 Minutes on Sunday night that there were commercials about you or somebody
that
like
would be so great.
like somebody like you, but all we really see are commercials about medications. I just hope that this information and exposure grows and grows and grows and grows. I feel like it's very controversial still. I mean, I'm just coming into this past couple of years, and I don't see it as the norm, but maybe it's more the norm than I think it is. But when things aren't working for people, I hope that they can just, even if a seed is planted, they could be like, wow, okay, how did Elena, where did she come from? Where is she now? What did you mean?
Is that your question?
Where is she now? You were a person that was suffering from these conditions, right? And you were suffering from hypothyroidism, a benign tumor on your pituitary,
Mm-hmm.
and you were going through infertility, right? So I don't know how many years you were trying to have a baby, and you had depression for 5 years straight. So somewhere, I know you had your life prior to that, and then, you had your suffering, and then hence you are where you are today. And I know that not many people might know this, but your husband went through his own healing journey, and you went through that with him, and you had your own. So there's a big span in between there, of how you were suffering to where you are today. And
Yeah.
I'm curious as to your journey or your husband's journey, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
It's a fair question to ask, because normally when I do presentations, I give myself about 30 seconds to introduce myself. This is my past. This is where I came from. I go and then I focus on the lesson. But so this is the story of Elena, right? I'll go deep. I'll go to my early childhood. So I was born and raised overseas, actually, until the age of almost 17. I was born in Kyrgyzstan, which is the former Soviet Union. So my roots are, I'm Slavic. I am a mix of a Russian and Ukrainian. I have a wonderful family, huge family. I'm the youngest out of 14 children. And we always joke around in our family that we are as healthy and strong as horses. It's literally there. It would take a lot to make any of us sick. So it was a huge surprise as when I was going through I matured. I am in America now. I am going to college. I moved away from my family. They lived in Washington. I moved to Ohio. That's where I meet my husband. And everything was A-okay until toward the end of the college. And I was doing a lot of things. I was working. I was volunteering. There were a lot of things going on. All of a sudden, my menses became a little bit more sporadic. So it was not monthly anymore. It was like every 2 months, every 3 months. And I'm young. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. It'll kind of level it out. Then I meet my husband. And shortly after we meet, within a half a year, he is diagnosed. So at that time, we're just barely starting to date. He is diagnosed with a benign, but a cyst on his brain. So we end up going, he gets checked into the hospital, and he has 3 brain surgeries back to back because there were complications one after another. And I become his primary caregiver. So not yet married, in my mid-20s at this time, still working full-time, still doing all the things that I needed to do in my life. And now I have a second life to where I need to support him, because when you have a brain surgery, you become basically like a child. His short-term memory is gone. He's incapable of making big decisions, and it would have been unfair to expect anything from that. And his family lives in New Jersey. So they're not there either. So here we are, two single people in love, and I become his all in all. I become whatever he needed me to be: his
Yeah.
spokesperson, his accountant, his everything. So my life looked like this. I woke up at 6 a.m, got ready for work. I work all day long. I would stop by the house, grab the food that I could, go to the hospital, spend all day there, because he couldn't trust anyone. His brain was touched, and he had a lot of reaction to medicine that he was on. So there was paranoia. And I was his peace tablet. I would come in, he would relax, he would sleep, and fighting for his life at that point, because he was told that he would have a shunt. He would need to have a shunt put into his body to keep him alive, because the fluid that he was producing in his brain was not being absorbed. So it was building up and causing pain. And so that's where my beliefs in miracle had to start, because we decided very early on that that's not how it was going to end. I said, listen, we believe in something greater than this, and we're going to fight for it. And doctors were like, you're crazy. And we would spend the afternoons when I get there, and anytime I was there, in affirmations and saying, yes, I'm healed. Yes, I'm whole. And he comes out a month later from the hospital without a shunt. It was not easy, but it happened. But 2 weeks later, the infection that he had in the hospital comes back, and we're checked back in, and the doctors say, well, last time you got away without it, this time we're putting it in. And we're back on the offensive, like, no, it's not happening. But long story short, we made it. Almost 20 years later, no shunt, complete healing. His doctor said that if he was not his surgeon and there was not a scar on his head, which you could see in pictures now, he would have never known that he had that surgery. So at that point, I was like, oh my God, miracles really do happen. It's not in the way that we think of miracles, right? It's when they say miracles, people are like, oh, she's woo-woo. Yes, I am. I am very much both the scientist. So my background is I majored in college in engineering and physics. Then I went on and had a degree in theology. And then my background is I worked in education. I worked in corporate banking. I've been a photographer. So I have I've lived many lives. So when I speak about anything, it comes from a really varied background of things that really do work. And it's not beneath me or above me to dip into any pool that can produce an amazing outcome, whether it's for me or for my clients now, because I don't believe that there's one path to a miracle for all people. I believe that there are many ways and many ways to explore it. And that started with me. So as my husband was healing, at that time we're not even engaged yet. So we decided that we're in love enough to get engaged and we're going to have a family. And by then I already gained weight because I just barely slept when I took care of him and I ate whatever. Before then I was making all of my food at home. Here on the go and taking care of him, whatever I could make it. So by the time we're getting married, I've already gained over like 20 pounds in the process. And I've noticed that there are changes in my body. My hair was falling out, eyebrows thinning. My doctor could not diagnose me with anything at that point except I had irregular menses. So she said, let's put you on birth control. I was dumb. So I was like, well, we're not having babies. I don't want to have a baby yet because he's still recovering. We were told that it was going to take another 2 to 3 years for him to recover. God knows I didn't want to have 2 babies. So I get on birth control. And things get a lot worse in the process. So it takes me 5 years to get really, really bad to a point that I become diagnosable. Actually, it takes me another 3 years to become diagnosable. So close to 8 years altogether. But we get to a point where I say, okay, we want to have babies. I want to be healthy. And now all this weight is on me. By then, I've already tried all sorts of birth control you can imagine, almost all. But I've tried the patch, the ring that you put inside. I've tried the pills, and each one of them made me sicker, and I was still not bright enough to stop it. So it doesn't matter how smart we are now, right? Sometimes we have to go through the school of hard knocks. So my process was I got myself really unhealthy, and then I tried what many people try. I gained weight, so I tried the South Beach diet. That was a thing back then. The Atkins diet. They'll push myself and work out until I drop, but my joints were hurting. And it takes me a few years to get diagnosed. So it takes me additional 3 years to get diagnosed after that with hypothyroidism, pituitary tumor, infertility. And my doctor says you basically cannot ovulate on your own, although you have the eggs in the basket. So at one point they said, let's just put you on medication to induce menstruation. Well, 3 days later, I was suicidal on that medication. I was walking to work and there was a bus coming. I was like, what if I just step out? And boom, I was like, whoa, girlfriend, this was never you. I'm a person who loves life. And a thought about taking my life or just disappearing was not natural to me at all. So I got to the office. I called the doctor. I said, I'm going off this medication. I don't care if I ever menstruate or not. I want to live. So I got off of that. But after that, so it actually took me another couple of months to get diagnosed with the infertility and hypothyroidism. And eventually the doctor walks in so the appointment was not fun. He walks in, I'm in a gown, spread your legs, ma'am, shoves his hand in there, like no apologies or anything. It's cold, it's unpleasant. And then he comes in 20 minutes later after he's done with the diagnosis into prescriptions in his hand. And he basically said, this is your future. This is what's going to happen. You can never reverse hypothyroidism. If you ever want to get pregnant, you have to take these 2 meds. And at that time, I'm already catching on because before that, my husband had cholesterol issues and angina, which is chronic chest pain. We were afraid that he was going to die, so we changed his diet. We saved him. That's another story to be told. But I already at that point knew that I needed to ask bigger questions. I said, what are the possible side effects of these medications? And he basically said, bye, I'll send my nurse in. So she gives me the list, and I look through the medication. It was one for pituitary tumor, and the other one was for thyroid. The combination list was of possible 70 symptoms. And I said, there's no way in hell or heaven I would ever do this to myself. It's just not worth it. And so it was December of 2007 when I vowed to myself that there has to be a better way, and I was going to find it. And so I set out the next year. I spent research hours. If there's a saying that I think it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert, I think I could have 10 PhDs by now because I would spend day and night researching, implementing, testing out. I've tried everything that people tried. The medications, eventually I had to try it because nothing was getting better and I wanted a baby. So it happened almost 3 years later that I finally tried that, but I'll get to that. In the beginning, it was all about diets. I explored every diet out there. Do we look at high protein diet or high fat diet? High carb diets were not a thing back then yet. They were just emerging, and that's what I preach now. Then do we do a vegan or a raw vegan diet? Do we do a cleanse? Do we do a colonic? Do we take a supplement or do we take 20 supplements? Do we do acupuncture? I've done it. I've done it too, where during acupuncture, one of the acupuncturists had a little lamp that would warm you up while you're sitting there with needles, which fell on my stomach and burnt it. I was like, okay, that's not a path to go. So I've really tried everything. I even worked with a chemist. And one of the things about me is I like life very simple. It's black and white. It's either we do or don't. You said it earlier. I'm not for everybody. I'm very much, let's get to the business. Let's fix it. And for me, chasing my healing in that way was not sustainable. I was getting exhausted mentally, emotionally. I would get fatigued because yes, I can go to a naturopath. And yes, we created a whole protocol there because he figured out a way to help me move my pituitary. So he was going to drive it to the brink of breaking, basically. And then the flip side was going to happen. I was going to feel better, but it made me feel extremely depressed. So the supplements that I was on put me in a place of being a zombie. So I think you meant somebody. I actually spoke to somebody today. She said, I feel like a zombie sometimes when I'm tired. I was like that all of the time. And it got to a point, and he put me on prescription progesterone supplements. That made me feel like I was out of body completely. Wow. So if you are talking about somebody who's been through the system and had tried it, I can raise my hand. And if I were to count, I think I spent between $15,000 to $20,000 within a 3-year span and on just trying to get better. And one day I woke up, Jeannie, and I said, I just can't do this anymore. So the easy part for me was hypothyroidism. I reversed in less than a year. That was the easy part. And the harder part was the pituitary tumor, because it takes me not almost 3 years to get to a point where I have my aha moment. But during this time, I go through stages of a lot of research and overwhelm and process and implement it to feel like I need to step back and breathe, because no one person can sustain that much effort without breaking. And eventually, so my daughter was born in 2012, so 2011. Early in the year, I sit down with my husband. I said, listen, I'm just tired. I'm tired of research. I'm tired of doing all this. I'm just going to go on medication for pituitary tumor, and let's see at least if we can get pregnant. And after I'm done with pregnancy, I'll just go and figure this out. And so at first I decided that whether I have a baby or not, my life is still worth living, and I had to make it. That was a big thing for me. And my life was worth living. I still had a lot to be grateful for. Overall, I was a healthy person. Most of the symptoms were gone. I was over 90% better. I mean, if we just stopped there and I decided I don't want babies, I would have been just fine. But I stepped back and I went on medication for pituitary, and it gave me every single possible side effect you can think of. I was swollen all the time, so imagine my face now, but bigger, even though I was even lighter in weight than I am now. And insomnia was severe. I would barely sleep 2 hours a night, and I was a fitness trainer at the time, so I couldn't breathe very well, so it gave me respiratory issues. And I did that just for the sake of trying to get pregnant. And eventually I got done with that too. I think it was 4 or 5 months later, I said, I just can't do this anymore either. I am done. So I go on a sabbatical from everything. I just decided I was going to live my best life. And that was it. And it takes about 30 days on average for the medication to purge from the system. And so one night I'm still having insomnia and I can't sleep. And I have this light bulb just goes off in my head. My gut feeling, whatever you want to just define it as. I thought, what are the leftover symptoms? What if they have something in common? What if there's one thing that can solve them all? And I go, and again, back then, we're talking about over 13 years ago, a little less now. There was not as much information on the internet. Right now, we're swimming into too much information. Back then, I actually used to spend a lot of time in libraries, conferences, you name it. I've been there, journals, magazines. And I sit down and I Google myself silly. And I come up into this little gem of information where infertility was tied to people with a B12 deficiency. Now, I didn't think I was deficient because I was supplementing at the time. And I was smart enough. Now, if I never went plant-based, I would have never supplemented. I went plant-based, and that actually saves my life. And so I found two studies that were published. I actually reached out to people who published the studies. One of them does not even remember he did the study. That's how old it was. But I said, that's okay, caution to the wind. I found a specialist in Britain just to ask some questions and couldn't get a hold of him. So his assistant is talking to me. I said, is there a possibility and a hope? He said, well, we don't know for sure, but there's a possibility. And that's all I needed, Janine. I come back full force. I do research. I find all the information I need. I interviewed a few doctors because we know how doctors can be, right? A few days ago, I posted a question on Facebook. I said, how can you describe your doctor? And most people didn't have a positive view of doctors. And that's what I've experienced in my life. They don't really listen. There's a lot of God complex. Now we're talking about chronic conditions. So we're talking about your PCP, your endocrinologist, the approach that people take to addressing a chronic condition, which that's what I had. In my case, what I had done at that time was I called every doctor I could find in town that was specialized in what I was looking for, and I interviewed them over the phone. And those who did not want to be interviewed, they didn't make my list. Those who answered the call, I would ask them questions. This is my lifestyle. This is what I want to do. Would you work with me? And there was one who was an osteopath. He said, yes, I would. And I brought all of my research and my husband until we came to the office, and I said, here's what's going on. Here's what's going on. Here's what I think. And for the first time, I had a doctor say, well, let's try it. He said, I specialize in everything. You specialize in you. He listened to me. He took my research. He copied it over so he can research it for others, for himself. So for his other patients, which never happened before, because the doctor who diagnosed me, Janine, when I went to him 3 years later, I've already having cured myself of hypothyroidism. And I told him, and he was surprised. And when I told him, do you want to have the information that I have so you can share it with your other patients? He said, no. You keep on doing what you're doing. And I was appalled. If you find something that works, why not try that on more people and more people and more people? But that's not how it works. So this doctor is different. He says, yes. And I said, I need a prescription for this. And because it was a vitamin, he just wrote it out. I did the labs and all. So my suspicion was correct, but based on American medical standards, I was not deficient. Based on the evidence I found, I was. 4 weeks later, I was pregnant. And the rest, they say, is history. So my path was through a lot of the pain and depression that you mentioned. 5 years it was a combination of things. It was a combination of, some of it had to do with pituitary. And some of it had to do with all the medications and supplements I was on, because my chemical balance was thrown off. Some of it was me grieving over the life that I wanted and I could not have, such as having a baby. Right. So my depression, I could not say this was due to hypothyroidism. I was in depression after I cured hypothyroidism. So I think it was just regret and the pain all combined together. And there's not a definition for any of us. I think we just all have to look what we're going through. And for me, I made it known to my doctors immediately, this is not up to negotiation. I'm not going to do medication. I need to work on me. And I had really good doctor in that sense that we didn't even negotiate it. But I went through some dark places. I never wanted to take my life. So we didn't get there because I have my convictions to where I don't think that's the way to go. But I remember sitting one time, I was working as a recruiter for college, and I was at a high school. And there was a little lake nearby, and I was taking a lunch break. And I thought, if I just walked to it and never came out, it'd be so good. And it was one of those wake up girlfriend moment again. And I was like, okay, whatever I'm doing is not working. We need to change better. But as my body was healing, and when before I even got pregnant, and as I got pregnant, this is the work that you alluded to earlier, that we need to work on ourselves. It's an ongoing process. Just coming out of depression was not like I woke up and everything was great. My body was so used to certain chemicals being expressed in my body and released in my body that my home base was depression. And when I would wake up every day, I had to create the practice that I teach now in the program is gratitude. What am I grateful for? Deciding how my day is going to go, looking for a smile in everything that I could find. And little by little, I went back to being me. Happy, healthy, and oh my God, how many things can we do today? How many lives can we save? So it is an ongoing process, and it's always been committed to you. It's never going saying what is the least amount of things that I can do in order to feel the best, but I always went by exactly the opposite. How can I change what's not working permanently so I can become a new person that I can love, respect, and be healthy with? And that's me. So the gist of it, this is my story.
I mean, that's very powerful. And you are somebody that had your own journey. You're very relatable because there's a lot of people going through a lot of things that you just mentioned, just in a different, right, just to whatever degree. I think it's just so powerful.
I eventually went on to get education in nutrition, and I specialized in women's health and gut health, autoimmune conditions, hormone health, because that's where my passion is. But it did start off with, I'm the most qualified person for me. I'm the most qualified people for that. But yes, there are degrees and certification. I actually am discussing this as a possibility right now with my husband, going back to college yet for another degree, because I want to go for my doctorate eventually. So yes, it's one of the things that I do appreciate education, but as we know, education alone does not do it, because we all have very educated doctors and sometimes they're at the dead end. I do think that experience plus education is very important.
And I think your role, your experience with your own self makes you qualified, period. And people just need to look at that and pay attention to that. You can prove what you've been through and you can share it, and you can just keep saying it's possible. And for those that believe that, they can believe that for themselves.
Yeah, it's become my mantra, right? I posted that a few days ago, that in order for us to believe that we can be healed, we need to first accept that as a possibility. Now, by the way, because I am bound by the government regulations, anything and everything that we discussed today is not medical advice, ladies. It is an opinion. It is for your entertainment and education purposes only. So don't go out there and try to replicate what I'm doing without medical advice first. And don't go say, oh, I listened to Elena on the interview, I'm going to go off medication. That's not what we're talking about. So in that aspect, we want to make sure that we know it. And yes, it comes from believing first that we can. So the government actually tells us as health coaches, which I'm a health and a life coach, that we cannot tell people, listen to this very carefully, that we cannot tell you all that you can heal or cure yourself. Those two words are monopolized by the medical industry. And now I do have freedom of speech. And so I can say this now. So even though I cannot tell you, come work with me, I'll heal you, I never actually said that. I would never say that to anyone, because the only people who can heal us is us. I want you all to listen to that carefully as well. So I believe that we need that belief system, Janine, to create that. In order for us to be whole, we need to believe in healing as an absolute possibility, probability in that sense. So what I believe in is, if we create a framework of anything is possible, then all we have to do is look for a path that leads to the outcome that we want. It doesn't mean we never get there. Sometimes we need coaches, sometimes we need mentors, sometimes we need doctors, sometimes we need whatever it is that we need. But I think that any outcome that we design in our mind as a possibility is a probability if we put our work to it. So yes, we need to decide. It is, I don't know, I've been in America over 20 years and English now is my primary language. But I always use the word healable, whether it's a word or not, it's okay, you live with me. But I believe that every condition, except if you already have been maimed, which means your body part has been removed, I think we're healable. I think that now we have enough science where we see that epigenetically, which means above your genes, we can heal ourselves through dietary changes, through lifestyle changes, through mindset changes. At any given moment right now, if I decide to feel depressed, I will fire off a whole scheme of different chemicals being released in my body and I will feel depressed. Or if I turn around and decide that I'm going to be happy because I've trained my body to do it, I will release different set of chemicals in my body and chemical reactions, and I will feel that. Now, if you're depressed, I'm not saying that you can just wish it away. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about a person when I train myself on demand to create emotions and chemical reactions. Because of it, I believe that epigenetically, which means, again, above your genes, that we can create any miracle that is possible. And I think that right now we are on the precipice of something amazing. As we're going to come out of this coronavirus, a lot of you right now who are not able to see doctors, you're saying, but what can I do at home? But what can I do? This is something we can do at home. I just spoke to a client today. She had years, basically a lifetime of digestive issues and hormonal issues. And when we spoke with her 3 months ago, she said, well, can you help me? And I was very honest. Sometimes we have some cases, Janine, when I go, my hands up, I'm like, I don't know, let's find out. Some of them I'm like, oh, absolutely, we can get you there, we can get you here. With this one was, oh, let's find out. And so as of today, we met at her 3 months mark. She's 71% better. That's after a lifetime of already trying everything. And the changes that she made, the biggest changes that got her here today is dietary and a mindset shift changes, releasing the trauma from the past. And that's what I've seen with myself. And I think miracles are possible in that level because we have not yet in the medical community tapped into the human that we're treating, right? We're always approaching human as a little machine, different body parts. We tinker with them. Let's cut this out. Let's put this in. Let's substitute this. Let's medicate this. And the reason it does not work is because we need to work with the human that we're treating as opposed to working on the human.
You've created a very powerful program, and it's based on some very simple concepts. You know what I mean? But yet, for each one of us as an individual, having you as a coach and then just trying to follow suggestions, we're in our own way. So it's just a program with such simple concepts: the mind, what we're eating, healing the trauma. Those concepts are pretty simple concepts, but they're so big.
They are so big and they're not always easy, right? What I talk about, Janine, is simple does not mean easy. It becomes easy eventually. But we're talking about, you just mentioned trauma, releasing trauma from your past. And now we've done, so I calculate everything. Remember that my background is I love math, I love physics. So we keep track of everything our clients do.
That was very tedious. That was really hard. And so you could see the actual progress from a week to week basis because you were having us mark down our symptoms and which ones were going away and how those were getting smaller. Week by week.
But we can measure, so nobody can come and say, well, it's all in your head, because we have hardcore data. So right now, if somebody wanted to come and say, Elena, do you have the data? We have thousands of markers, hundreds of thousands of different markers between different people where we tabulate everything. And what we see is that everything that we design, it's figure outable, right? I think it was Marie Forleo. She is really well known in the business sector, and she's written a book. She has coined this term, everything is figure outable. We can figure out pretty much everything, right? To work with each of our clients, we'll look at what made you you. So you mentioned the trauma, and we've noticed now because of the tabulation we've done, is that over 70% of our clients come having lived through a traumatic experience. And they're different. It could be emotional, it could be physical, psychological, sexual, it could have been neglect, it could have many things. It could have been trauma at birth, but most people don't go like, oh, did you have trauma at birth? Was your mother traumatized when you were conceived and born? We go that deep because the moment we start ignoring these factors is the moment we can never get somebody to 100%. And I can tell you the difference between people who get to 100% versus people who don't is those who are willing to go all the way in and put the effort and the work and uncover what's unpleasant and work on releasing it. We have different methods that we give to our clients to release trauma. For somebody, it can be one thing. For somebody, meditation might work. For somebody else, it could be visualization. For somebody else, it could be trauma release. For somebody else, it's something else. But trauma has a huge role to play in who we are. And I've read not hundreds, but thousands of books on each topic. And there are some right now coming from psychiatric specialty where we really see that talk therapy alone is good. I mean, it makes people feel good. It makes some progress, but for a lot of people, it just repeats trauma. Right. So we work on releasing trauma in a physiological way that is not involving you reliving the things that you live through. Now, I'm not a therapist, so we don't actually do the work. We give clients the tools and the client does the work. Right. So yes, it is a combination of things. Diet, we go, oh, well, is it really that important? Yes. I know during the flu and cold season, I really cracked down my household. There's no sugar, no this, no that. We just did a series last week, Janine, with Danielle on what can boost immune system, what can absolutely destroy it. Food has everything to do with it because food is the building block, is the energy that we use to make our body. So it absolutely has to do with it. But it is multi-leveled. And I think that putting things together, and that's why we call it 360 degrees, because we take a little bit from every part of your life. How is your relationship with your spouse? How's your relationship with yourself, with your children? Oh, now let's talk about how you perceive the world. Let's see if there's trauma. Let's see if there's a deficiency, a genetic mutation. How's your diet? I can go on and on. But yes, it is very simple. It's the simple concepts because they don't require a prescription. Mm-hmm. I always tell people it's not always necessarily easy because it requires a lot of soul searching, a lot of willingness to become the person that you actually want to be and put work into it, as opposed to say, which pill can you give me for me to become a different person?
Yeah, and I think you've even said that with the nutrition piece, that you've had some people that are eating by the book or by your book or plant based, and they could only go so far. It's not just the
Yes.
diet. Because I thought, wow, could I just be the person that eats better and eats what I'm supposed to? Like all this is going to get better or whatever. And it's just that's not everything. That's not
No,
everything.
it's not. And it's important though. So on one hand, we're saying, oh my God, it's not as important, but it is important. So there's duality in that. Diet is the foundation. So we're building our body, our physical body is built from the foods that we eat. Would be ignorant to say otherwise. But at the same time, we're so much more than the food. We're so much more than the body, right? We're a body that is operated. Some of you who are religious, you'll say you have a spirit. Some of you who are non-religious or we believe in soul, whatever you believe in. But what we know is there's this essence that keeps us alive until we take that last breath and it's gone out of us. But we need to consider the whole person, the emotion, the spiritual life, and the physiological life, and no longer separate them. Like, oh, you go to church to deal with spirit, you go to doctor to deal with this. We put it all together and saying we're a one being that needs all of these things in order for us to operate at its optimal level.
I mean, this type of thing excites me. It excites me, healing our emotional past and the physical, and just being able to change and make progress and feel better. And for some people that means reclaiming their life. For some people that means getting back to the person that they were born to be, and just discovering themselves and just having fun and joy and being happy and learning ways to think differently. What am I putting in my mind on purpose? What am I putting in my body on purpose?
Shall we go there for a second? Right, we can't go and say, doctor, give me a prescription, which we all do or have done because it's easy, or a supplement, and let's hope it changes my health. Most of us don't go and say, what can I change about me to become the person that I want? Because it's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. We're challenging status quo. We're challenging what the human body is designed to be. We are designed to contain this wonderful person that we have inside in a thing that likes automated processes. And by default, we're a very negative being because we look for danger so we can preserve ourselves from danger. What I'm inviting our clients to do is the opposite, where we're going to wake up and be in gratitude and be in joy and do wonderful things. And that means working on your defaults to become something that is not even natural to you because it's available to us. And I think that's a way of becoming divine in that sense, right? Becoming godlike, because we co-create our health at that point. We're no longer going from, please, heal me, whether it's through medication, surgery, prayer, whatever it is, to what can I do to be the healer? So that was my big prayer, right? In the beginning, I used to say, I just want to be whole, heal me, heal me. That didn't happen. For most of us, I think it doesn't ever happen. Mm-hmm. But eventually I started saying, please show me the way, right? Whatever divine you believe in, I was like, please show me the way, universe. Show me, how do I get there so I never have to be back here again? And be careful what you pray for, because that's exactly what happened. I had to put a lot of work into it. It took me years to get there. Yeah. But where I am now is better than when I was in my late 20s, and I'm 44 as of today. Well, not as of today, earlier this year, but today I am 44. But it's in our power. Simplicity is there. And like you, I geek out over this stuff because we can make it sound so esoteric and so scientific. I can talk about the neural pathways right now and the energy that we are and the energy that we put out, because it's all physics. And I love that. Yeah. And we can talk about reprogramming the body. We can talk about chemical reactions in our body. But I love to simplify it for most people, because most people don't want to get a degree in biochemistry and they don't want to get a degree in quantum physics, which is my love. I geek over that too. Yeah, I love most it too. People want to hear, like, what do I do to get from here to here? And we give them simple, everyday word language to get from one point to another. But with all the principles, so on the surface, it's very simple. Underneath, there's all the things that we can discuss that involve biochemistry and epigenetics and things that are very esoteric, and quantum physics and all of that. But the thing is, it's all available to us through thought and food and deed. Mm-hmm. How simple is that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And people just realize that they have to take responsibility. They have to take responsibility for themselves. It's what choices are they going to make on a daily basis?
Is that the biggest question to ask? What choice do I make today that is uncomfortable and I have to change me? The failures that sometimes we see in our clients when they do happen. So we normally boast about this. We have 95 to 99% success rate. Right now, every single person we're working with, they're getting outcomes. They're in different level because they're at different stages. So we're at 100% success rate with our clients now. Within their own stories, the success can be 71%, 17%, whether it's, 90, wherever percent. But the huge difference that we see in people is their willingness to do whatever it takes to get there. If you're willing, sometimes we say it's okay. You can get there very fast if you give it all you got, or if you want to take it slowly, you get there slowly. And then we have some people who give it all they got and they've just been chronically ill for their whole lifetime. It just takes a little longer. Mm-hmm. So it is that willingness for you to say, I get to work on Janine today. And you've done it for yourself, Janine, haven't you? When you wake up and you have to say, ooh, what are the thoughts I'm thinking? What kind of chemical reactions are they creating in my brain?
Right. Because it's really the hormones. I learned a lot it's about balancing the hormones. They're all out of balance for, a lot of people creating these situations. We don't think in those terms. And it's all very exciting, this way of thinking. I wasn't raised like this. I wasn't raised like this. And this is all new. And somehow that happened to me during my life somehow, that I shifted over to some different possibilities in some different ways. It's been kind of lonely at times. It's been kind of lonely and it's been kind of scary. And as I develop my voice and I go this route, I'm just learning how, from my own experience, what the success is, what the changes are in my health, how I'm growing and changing. And there's no disputing that. There's just nobody
right. And look at yourself a year ago and now, don't you feel like you have become a different person?
Every day I'm changing, and that's going to be constant, and it's healthier, it's happier, and it's just a result of all this information, of trying some different things, following some advice from some other people who made some progress and kind of charted the way. And it just, like I said before, like getting out of our own way. Like I'm somebody who wants and can probably do so much more, but there's a part of my brain or me that's operating that's almost afraid of that. We don't really want to get, more healed because look at all the possibilities. So there's something
can we stop there for a second? Because I know it's almost rude to interrupt you, almost rude, because you're into something. Okay. I wanted to emphasize, but some of us say we want to be healthy, but we really do not subconsciously. Here's why. And we work through this with each of our clients, is to really define, do you really want to be healthy? Because when you say I do, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my time, my finances, or something else, this is going to sound rude and harsh. So bear with me. It's not meant to be, but that means you're not ready to commit to you. And you can go and say, Elena, you don't know I'm hurting financially. Been there, done that. I am first generation immigrant. My family came to America with $300 for 6 people. So trust me, I understand. We dressed from Goodwill. We went and we got food from wherever we could until we were able to get jobs, learn the language, and make it. So I get it. But at no point did we ever say, well, because we are, here comes an excuse, fill in the blank, right? We're foreigners, we don't know the language and all, we can just smooch up the system or do something else. We had no excuse policy. The clients who succeed with us have no excuse policy. The moment I hear somebody saying, well, you don't understand, Elena, I don't have the time. My family will not eat the way I eat. I have to cook too many different meals. And that's a conversation we should have, because you shouldn't be cooking for everybody like a cafeteria lady. Or I don't have the finances, or I don't have X, Y, and Z. Then you're simply not ready to do whatever it takes yet. And the health is not for the weak of heart. I get it. And sometimes we have clients who can't move and you have to rely on somebody else to do it for you. So again, it is not meant to be rude or to disqualify you that you don't deserve it. Some people, okay, financially, maybe some people are not able to work with me, but then they go and they pick up every bit and piece that they hear on podcasts like this and on something else that we do, interviews, and they piece it together and they do it. So it's all about commitment. But the commitment only comes when we're absolutely ready to abandon the person that we have become because of disease. Because some of us have identified with disease so much that we have become one with it. We are working with clients right now, and a couple of them, we had conversations recently. I said, what makes you afraid of healing? And the first reaction is always, what do you mean? I'm not afraid of healing. I want to heal. And then I let it sit and I let them get really honest. And here's what always comes up, Janine. the possibilities. What if I succeed and then I can no longer tell my spouse that I don't have sex drive because now I do. Or I can no longer tell my kids that I cannot work because now I can. Or what if now I actually have to go and face myself and become the business owner that I was called to be, and now I have no excuse of that I am sick, and I have no excuse, and I have to come all the fears and all the possible rejections that come with that success by leaving this comfortable, ugly place that is called disease. This is the question that I had to ask myself, because what do I do if I'm comfortable in feeling depressed? Because you create that home base there and you can get really comfortable. It's ugly, it's unpleasant, but it's comfortable. Safe. Thank you. And now all of a sudden you're saying, oh, now there's no depression. And now I cannot say, oh, I can't do this because I'm exhausted, because I'm full of energy, because it's a risk that we take. So you actually do take risk when you become healthy. In Western medicine, we're so, oh, something must have happened. You can never reverse it. But we go, why not? Right? You mentioned something, Janine, as we started to talk. You said you're finding your voice. What we find with a lot of women with hypothyroidism, and ladies, please listen, because you're not going to read it anywhere else except in the book when it comes out, when I'm done by the end of this year, is we have seen a direct correlation between women who have hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, so thyroid issues, and their ability or inability to express their true identity. That means to speak up your thoughts, to be comfortable with who you are, to make sure that your voice is heard. If you're constantly pleasing people, you're really suffocating yourself, and your thyroid is going to take the beating. You're going, Elena, it's not possible. Yes, it is, because I said earlier, we're a spirit, soul, and body combined into one. We're not separating one from the other. So if you're constantly holding your truth and you're taking on the hurts and the pains of the world and never expressing yourself, is going to settle somewhere in your body. And we have 7 energy centers running from this meridian. In Indian culture, they're called chakras. Right? We call them energy centers, but they will settle somewhere. It could be your pituitary, like it was for me. It was my thyroid. For some of you, it's your reproductive organs. For some of you, it's in your gut. So we have this axis, and we need to make sure where is the energy being depleted, where it's not going somewhere. Hopefully this is not too esoteric for most of you, but hopefully you're like, oh my God, I've never thought about this, because this is how healing comes. Finding your voice. And Janine, back to what we started this with, by saying, do I really want to be healthy? Because if I am, I have to create a whole new personality. Am I ready for that?
Mm-hmm. What are my possibilities? If everything gets cleared away, it's going to be in front of me. I'm going to have to step into it. That's scary. So, and our part of our brain is always trying to protect us, right? So it's kind of part of us working, and then part of us working against us.
Yes.
So
and it's the animal that I always tell people, we all have multiple personality disorders. So let's please not make it a stigma on anybody else. We all do. There's always going to be the voice. You should do this. No, you shouldn't. You're safe. You're not safe. There's at least 15 voices in each of our heads every single day. And it's not a disorder. This is how humans are wired. And I know there's a clinical multiple personality disorder, which is very fascinating to study. This is what makes my work so possible, because in multiple personalities, are you up for some science? I'm going to get back in a moment. So in multiple personalities, under observation, what they have seen people who have the severe form of it is when one personality changes to another, there's physical transformations that are happening at the same time. One has better eyesight, the other one does not. One has needle marks because she's a drug addict, the other does not because she's a proper girl. I mean, how freaky is that when you see freckles appear right in front of you as the personality changes in the same body? So if we can observe in that, we say, okay, how we can extrapolate this power and implement it in our life to create physiological responses to our thoughts, to our emotions. And this is what makes our work so successful in a program that we do, is because this is exactly what we do. We allow you to take your emotions, bathe your body in your future to where you come out as a new person in a matter of months, as opposed to waiting another 20 years to get whole again. So for a lot of our clients, like I mentioned the person earlier, on 3 months in, 71% better after years of struggling. How is that possible? Because she created a whole new identity that she's stepping into daily: gratitude, releasing, going through forgiveness, going through this, going through that. That's what we all can do. But yes, it is work. And yes, like you said, we have multiple personalities in us. And by default, we're programmed to look at the negative and keep ourselves safe by not stepping out too far out, because what if, we're not even going to talk about the lion that would eat us, but as we live in communities, especially when we are way before our society developed where it is now, sometimes to disagree with the community is to be stoned or to be shunned. That means you're alone or dead. So we learn to really become just like the rest of them. We conform for safety. So we keep all of that inside, but this is exactly the things that they keep us safe but sick.
There's just such the misconception that people have, that they think they're stuck. They think that because I got these genes from my parents, this is what's going to happen to me. I can't do anything about it, and this is my future. So that's so.
It's easy.
Right. Yeah.
It's easy, isn't it?
It's not the truth. People believe that's the truth that they believe for themselves.
Because we've been programmed to believe. So up until we discovered genetics, there's a DNA and this is how it's programmed. Nobody was walking around saying, I'm destined to be just like my mother. Although there are sayings going as old as humanity that the apple does not fall far from the tree, right? So, but it's easy in a way because we are programmed. That means we don't have to think for ourselves. And we see it in, for example, celebrities. If we look at Angelina Jolie, right? Her mother passes away because she has breast cancer. And now we think, I have a gene for breast cancer. I need to go chop off my breast, which she basically did. And she had implants instead just to keep herself alive. Whereas on the other hand, now she has chemicals in her body being released all the time. Totally different conversation. But we are so afraid that our DNA is stronger than us that we go and we submit to it. But the moment you submit to it, you become it. So what we can do instead here is say, listen, yes, there's the DNA, but now there's this emergent science, although we've practiced it as humanity for thousands of years, but there's a science called epigenetics where we can use the thought, the food, the environment, the relationships to reprogram your DNA, where just like with multiple personality disorder, we can see transformation in people physiologically and emotionally and spiritually, and it becomes something else, something beautiful.
I remember in the program at some point there was a video you showed us of a hospital in another country where just by thought they had this woman's tumor on the screen, and the method of which that tumor disappeared, what had nothing to do with medicine or surgery or anything like that.
Yeah, that was in a Chinese hospital. I think that hospital no longer exists, but they had a medicine-free hospital which people from all over the world and all over China would come to, and they would use exactly this epigenetic things, such as, first of all, they put people in communities. So in a room with other people who are seeking miracles, seeking healing, and they all agree that they are all going to get whole. And then their sessions with their doctors would be picking a phrase that would represent their outcome and just chanting it over and over until the body is so bathed in emotion. So the instance you're talking about, people actually can go YouTube it and see where they have an ultrasound, a tumor in the woman, and they make this decision. They have this conversation between doctors and the patient. They decide on the phrase and they're saying, I can't remember the meaning of it. And they chant it and they chant it. And right in front of our eyes, it's so freaking awesome. The tumor is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And you go, how's that possible? It doesn't take years. The answer is here is it doesn't have to.
It's not just somebody talking about it. I mean, they show it and you can watch along right as it's happening in real time, which is amazing. So, I mean, we're just talking about so much here, but for people to, again, right, to be looking at the root cause of whatever it is that they're going through, instead of just their symptoms, they don't even understand that they've just got symptoms going on and that there's a label of a disease or something put on them for reasons, so that everybody can walk forward and treat the symptoms. And there's just this whole different concept to me about trying to get to the root cause. Why do I have the problem in the first place? And of course, once you get to the root, you're not going to have any symptoms. So it's just a different mindset.
I bow to your wisdom. You're absolutely right. If we don't have to worry about the leaves on the tree, those are the symptoms. If we go and uproot the whole thing, get the roots out of the ground, and the symptoms, they wilt away. Because the problem is not usually in the leaves, it's in the ground, it's in the roots, it's in what's making us sick. It's our ability to go and get really honest with us. And sometimes that means you're really having time sitting and visiting with yourself, not your cell phone, not more research. It's you shutting the whole world out and sitting there quiet enough so your subconscious mind, your body can speak to you and say, remember that trauma 2 years of age? I know you don't, but here's what happened. And you go, oh my God. And now as I release and I let it go, the digestive system improves. And then that means your diet is working better because now you're absorbing nutrients better. And now because you're absorbing nutrients better and there's peace in your heart, your stressors and hormones of stress are going down. And all of a sudden your body steps up and produces all the normal hormones and all the normal chemicals.
People are in such a chronic state of stress that's become their way of life that they don't even realize they're in the stress. The body's responding to the stress, but people have that's their norm that they've come to understand. So
yeah, and stress has many roots, right? Stress is not just like stress. There's stress that comes from relationships, stress that comes from food, because you can stress your body with poor food. Over exercising can be stress. Who'd have thunk, right? There are many various financial stress, emotional stress, being stuck in traffic stress. So it's really how do we filter world through our senses? Mm-hmm. And for you, something like opening mail would be not a problem. For me right now, I remember when I was going through depression, even opening a bill would send me on a spiral, be hyperventilating. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
And those things that you mentioned are like stressors, but it's really us reacting to those things as stressors. It's not that the traffic is my problem or that the bill is my problem, right? I mean, we're going a little bit deeper here.
150% right. I'll give you, 1,500% right. Like I said, if I take mail right now, it's going to do nothing to you, but me, because I have a story behind it, right? For me, I put everything on automated bill pay, and that's how I deal with life. And right now I could process it, but does mean I want to, plus it's smart. But anyway, I'm digressing. But it's how I perceive it. Somebody makes a remark about your hair right now, you'd be like, just fine. Somebody else hears the same remark, they'll be like, you're criticizing me. Because we filter everything that we hear through our experiences that we have in life. For somebody saying, oh, you're sweaty, go wash, would be like, oh, I just had, played the game of basketball, I'm sweaty. And the other kid goes in hyperventilation and feels that you attack him because in childhood, somebody might have made fun of him being sweaty and stinky. You see how we can take the same factors. So in factors, there is no such thing as stressors. They are facts of life, but they become stressors when we respond to them in a certain way. Yeah. And there was actually a story, I think in California, it was on TV. In the news, California has really bad traffic, especially in big cities. And the reporter goes from car to car just to see how people are dealing with it. And one guy rolls down the window and she says, sir, how are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm doing fantastic. I got some food here. I have my coffee. I have some tapes I'm listening to. I left my house 2 hours ago. My boss cannot really ask any more of me than I can give him. He goes to another car and the guy is cussing up a storm. Crazy Californians, this effing traffic, this and that. Same situation, two different people, two different outcomes. One is happy, the other one is miserable.
You get 10 different reactions, right? Or individual. And every individual is going to have possibly a different reaction to the same exact situation.
Yeah. And just like we are right now, Janine, there's coronavirus. You walk into my house and we're having life as normal. But you walk in here, we abide by the facts that we are doing great as humanity. And no, I don't expect 240,000 Americans to die. Why would I expect that? Why would I sit there and make that a self-fulfilling prophecy? I'm sitting here and saying, listen, based on CDC's information yesterday, or as of this morning when I looked, there were 4,000 deaths. Right? Why would I run around and say, oh my God, the sky is falling, we're all going to die? How is that benefiting us? When we do everything that we can, then we go into a place of rest and peace. And that's walking to your next door neighbors, they might be freaking out right now. They have all masks on their faces, even inside the house. So again, how we react to life is different. It is up to us. The internal peace can be either in upheaval and turmoil, or it can be, listen, we've gotten through World War I, World War II as the global community. Locally here, we had civil uprisings and we had this and that, and we've survived so much more. We're surviving flu every year, where the flu takes 60 to 70,000 American lives every year. And nobody's going, oh my God, we made it a part of who we are. So right now is absolutely how we process stress and how we relate to it is extremely important, and it doesn't have to be stressful. by the way, if you're listening right now and you're in the precipice of, oh my God, this is all amazing stuff and I really want to experience it for myself, we're going to paste the link. It's in the description of this video already. If you go to our website, you can just go through 360impacthealth.com. There will be a link there that you can schedule a complimentary 15-minute call with my team for them to pick your brain and see if we can help you. Usually they speak to you first, and if they feel that we can help you, they put you on a call with me. Then I talk to you, and we do what we did with Janine. We sit down and we go through a whole exploration process. What made you sick? Where do you want to go? I am very, very strict. And by strict, I don't mean I'm not friendly. I'm very friendly. But I go very much, do you fit into the criteria of somebody I can help and want to work with? Because I do believe we could create a relationship. And then we go, will you commit with everything that you got to your health, to your improvement, to your weight loss, to whatever it is? And if the answer is yes, we talk about possibilities. If the answer is no, we just say, it's nice meeting you. Have a great day. Because I do believe that miracles are possible on so many levels, and you can achieve them, but only if you're committed and only if you come open-minded.
What does a moment look like for you when you make a poor choice? Because I don't see it happening. You know what I mean? I didn't look at you like you were perfect or anything, but you were, my model of strength. Like if I could just sort of be neutral about it and just follow what she's saying, not have any resistance. So like what in a moment where you might need to, and I'm going to feel weak. I don't know what the right word is, but what does that look
Let's
like
call it tempted.
Yeah, because you seem a bit indestructible.
I do. And so that's a part of my family, ironically calls me the Iron Lady. It's a part of my DNA. This is who I am. This is who I actually took the time to build in my life. I don't ever strive for perfectionism. I think it is delusional to do that. I do strive for excellence when it's available. And there is a really huge difference between a perfectionist, that means you're never happy with anything you do, and excellence is finding things to always be happy about. What makes me indestructible in some ways and very destructible in others is a moment-by-moment decision and training myself to be. So, for example, when I was sick and I was going through depression and hypothyroidism, you would have been hard-pressed to find any sugar or anything processed in my household. Not once in a while. Mind you, I've been healthy for over a decade. I'm a lover of like chips, potato chips. You give them to me. Oh my God. That's why I don't bring them into the house. Yeah. I could do 5 bags, no problem, because I love the crunch. I love the salt. So I make those choices on purpose. So once a week, my family will go out when we're not under quarantine. We'll go out and say, okay, everybody can get one treat. Like my husband, of course, he's a grown person. He can do whatever he wants. Between my daughter and I, and usually she goes for sweets, and I like something salty, I might like something sweet. And then I say, here's what I've chosen. There's no judgment. This is neither bad or good. This is what I want right now, because I know it's not going to hurt me, or not long-term, right? So if I eat sugar, it's always going to bring my immune system down. So, but if I do, then I do all the other things right to compensate for it. Now I make poor choices. And poor choices sometimes are not diet. Diet is easy for me. I don't have to think about diet.
Right.
Emotionally, I can make a poor choice to react negatively. I still have arguments with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Those are poor choices, but how do I ever learn if I never make a mistake, right? We're delusional to think that we can learn or should learn without mistakes. One of my business heroes is Gary Vaynerchuk. He's in a business, in advertising, marketing arena, but he says while people talking about not making as many mistakes, he does the opposite. He says, I make them as fast as possible so I can learn as fast as possible. So not on purpose, but if they happen, we'll learn from them, we grow from them, we'll move on. And so what makes me more successful at this is I get very cold-blooded when things happen. And by that, I mean, I don't get overtly emotional. I have an argument with my husband. I'll walk away. I'll have some emotions. And I say, okay, your time is up, emotional self. Now we're going to go back into rationality. And rationality says, what do you want from this? Where am I? And sometimes that means sucking it up, going to apologize, and 5 minutes later, I will do that. But it doesn't, again, perfectionism and indestructibility are two different things. When it comes to health, it's very simple. I've lived in hell, Janine, for almost a decade. There's nothing that I would ever do to put me back there. Sometimes people ask me, Elena, if you eat healthy this way, if you do this, how long before I can go back to what I'm doing now? And I'm saying never. Unless you're ready to say never, you're not ready to be healthy. And so I'll not work with you, because for me, it's very simple. When you have been to hell and you've lived there, there's nothing that is going to tempt me going back there. My family would sometimes say, And I just started this plant-based journey. Oh, don't want to tempt you. We're not going to eat it in front of you. Or, oh, you want to smell the steak? I'm like, it doesn't tempt me. You don't know where I just came from. I saved my husband's life because he could have died from coronary issues. I saved my life. I have a baby. Do you think I would ever be tempted? It's kind of like telling somebody who just came out of an abusive relationship, like, ooh, can we, sway a beating in front of you and want to go back? The answer is no, right? The answer is not that we ever want to go back. We just remember where we came from. And for me, it's motivational. And if you walk into my pantry right now, into my fridge, the only thing that is off plan right now is going to be a block of chocolate that we're going to spread over the next week. And I don't have any bad feelings about it. We're going to spread it. We're going to enjoy it. And that's what makes it easy, is because I thrive for excellence based on my experience and not because somebody tells me to. Mm-hmm. Because it's a choice, and because I created a persona for myself that I have become. So we all are born with certain predispositions. We become certain things because of our upbringing, because of somebody believing or not believing in us, and so on and so forth. For me, I always peek into my future and say, what kind of woman do I want to be that I can respect and be happy with? And I decide on her, and then I time travel back into the present and say, I'm becoming her right now. And that makes my life super easy, because it's easy. I'm already her. I'm the woman that I can respect. And for me, a lot of my life is built around self-respect.
Very intentional.
Very,
very intentional. And we can certainly learn from that. Like I say, thank you for walking the walk and just being such a true person. For sometimes you're out on your walks and you take us with you. And you're just always living what you teach, and
yeah, it would be tough otherwise. This has been my life's journey, actually. As I know we have many heroes sometimes. My hero has been my mother. Very much. She lived through Great Depression, World War II. She created a business during communism, which was not even allowed. Like, how did she get away with that and made stuff? And I've learned from her that being intentional is everything, being purposeful. She is my biggest hero. And for me, I think if we all create heroes within ourselves that we can look up to, and when we need to, let's look outside of us. I have business heroes. I just mentioned several to you. I have one of my health mentors, Dr. Pam Popper. You can find her on YouTube. In the beginning of my journey, I went to one of her events and I asked her a question, can I reverse hypothyroidism? And she told me, I don't know. Like, we are that honest. We're that honest.
Thank God.
And then when I finally reversed it, I wrote an email to her. She said, can I publish your email in one of my news articles? I said, absolutely, if it helps anyone. But we get inspired by people who've walked the walk. And when we talk about Pam Popper, she's PhD, she's this, she's that. She's been in documentaries. I've attended her. She has an institute that she runs that I've attended. So this is how we went to, we know each other a little bit deeper. But I think if we surround ourselves by examples and by the heroes, and they don't have to be heroes for the rest of your life, just the hero for you to be inspired right now. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's somebody like me, and somebody could be your cat or a dog or a child. I don't care. Sometimes we look within, sometimes we look without, but together we create a world that is really beneficial to us. Mm-hmm. So for you to say thank you, you're welcome. And I learned from my clients. I learned from your strengths. I learned from our collective weaknesses, and together we improve. When I started this program, we were running on diet is everything. And then I was like, this is everything. And then I found like, okay, nothing is everything. This is where I went to, where what makes us so successful right now is there is not a one size fits all. We need to adjust it to the person, not to some kind of theology or a school of thought. I've seen it. Everybody goes vegan, or everybody goes raw vegan, or everybody goes paleo. There's so much error in that. It has to be true to who we are. It has to be true to what science says. It has to be true to our experience. So many factors go into it, but it's been nothing for me. I've left my past life. Like I said, my background is engineering and physics and education. And I remember when I started blogging about my process, people began to write to me from all over the world. And I said, if I'm it, because for me, I didn't have an it person who said, this is what you do to get there. I had to uncover it. And I was the first person to write to, I used to use the Google's free blogger platform to blog. It's gone now. Well, we've transferred it, but I was the first person to write an article about curing hypothyroidism naturally, and I would get thousands of hits every day. And now if you Google it, somebody had to go first. There's all these programs who are talking about the same thing. And now we're talking about hormones and this, and just watch, the world is going in the same direction. We have so many people popping up all over. So we're certainly a voice in the universe, but we're not the lonely voice anymore. People like you and I, and right now you're doing things. You're speaking up, you're sharing the truth, and that's what we want to create. One affects many, and many affect everyone.
Thank you for being so open and honest, because that's what makes you vulnerable, me vulnerable, relatable. And that is, I think, when people can maybe watch us and look at people or whatever, and then feel and relate, then they can, that's rather than just saying, do this and do this and do that.
It's much better than walking in, having a white coat with a prescription pad, and there's a time and place for that. But being a number and becoming a person, for me, authenticity, and I know this word has been abused too much, but to authentic is to be true to who yourself. Me, this is who I am on an everyday basis. I have arguments with my husband. I have disagreements with my daughter. I also have great moments. I have amazing intimate life. And I can talk about all of that, because we when we are who we are, the world can actually learn from it, as opposed to learning from a persona that does not exist.
I think that's what has the most weight.
Yeah.
Really, is most effective. Thank you for letting us talk about all that today.
Well, thank you for coming up with this idea. This has been refreshing. I'm usually the interviewer. I do interviews for other podcasters, sometimes for radio shows, for whatnot. And this is fun. I've never gone this deep into my personal story with anyone. And if you're at the point that you don't want to go through the school of hard knocks like I've gone, like Janine has gone, and you want a shortcut to getting your outcomes faster, all you have to do is reach out. You can go to our website also to look for resources, but reach out. There's no cost to the conversation that we have. It's a 15-minute call, and we get to determine whether we can help you or not. If you're listening to this as a podcast, and if you love what you're hearing, we'd love to get a 5-star review from you on your favorite podcasting network, because the more reviews we get, the more people can find us. And if you have not yet subscribed to our podcast, go to your favorite podcasting network and look up the Health Wizard podcast, and you're going to see me and all the wonderful ladies that have gone through the interviews with me, or now is going to be with Janine, who interviewed me as well. And for now, we want to wish you a fantastic rest of the day and nothing but optimal health. We will talk to you on the next episode of the Health Wizard podcast. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed today's topic. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the Health Wizard podcast. And please don't forget to tell others about it. If you would like to get more information about me and what I do, how I help amazing human beings just like you to achieve their dream health, go to www.360impacthealth.com. Go to the contact page and shoot me a note. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Health Wizard podcast. This is your host, Elena, wishing you optimal natural health.